But it wasn't a full victory. They still signed onto some wacky, unbelievable agreement where, again, man is the enemy and the commoner will be taxed for breathing for an invisible substance known as carbon dioxide. One of the keys to the universe, a life force for plants. This harmful, toxic gas, according to the EPA, just on time for the Copenhagen Climate Summit, by the way. They love to time this stuff all together. EPA declares carbon dioxide a harmful, toxic gas. Ooh, carbon dioxide, folks. And I keep hearing about this carbon footprint and how bad we are and how we have to reduce emissions. Read in between the lines. This means less for you and more control for them. Now, why do I say it's just a partial victory? Because of headlines like this one, and we're going to get to this video in just a moment. Copenhagen Climate Summit plan for the European Union to police countries' emissions. So in other words, an illegitimate international organization that started up as trade agreements between countries is now given oversight and power over the environment and the people. The ultimate oversight and power for them to come in and say, no, you can't drive that car. No, you can't have that child. No, you can't live in that home. Yes, you can pay more taxes. And again, the smaller gas stations are kind of picking up on this and saying, look, if this cap and trade legislation is passed here in the United States, it's going to go up 75 cents to $1.50 a gallon of gas. But you don't see that when you pull into a Shell. You don't see that when you pull into a BP. You don't see that when you pull into an Exxon. Why is that? Because these are the people who are calling for a global climate tax. That's what cap and trade is. They want to see it happen. So I'm going to play this video of Mr. New World Order himself, Gordon Brown, the unelected Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And when I say Mr. New World Order himself, this guy got up before the CBI before he was Prime Minister and must have used the term a dozen to 24 times. We've got a little bit of it coming up in my next film, Invisible Empire. And he has promoted this thing just over the top in the last 12 months, calling for it at the G20, calling at it at church services, coming to this country before Congress and discussing a new global deal, and a new world order. So here he is, Prime Minister Brown, talking about the EU policing countries' emissions. Hit the clip.
A huge opportunity for new jobs, new industries, and new services. We believe that in the United Kingdom we can create something in the order of 400,000 jobs over the next few years from our low-carbon industries and services alone. But I also want to emphasise that France and Britain, and I believe all the other European countries, recognise that to make possible a climate change deal which secures the future of our environment, we have to work together to provide sufficient finance so that our developing country partners can make the changes that are necessary in their climate change policies to benefit the whole world. So there's never been any doubt that we would have to put up some money from the richest countries. We have already agreed that there is money in the order of $10 billion to be found over the next 3 years. We are able to finance that from the money that we are announcing today, and I believe the rest of the European Union will come on board. This is the joint enterprise of France, Britain, and many other European countries to make possible what I believe is absolutely essential for the world, and that's a climate change agreement.
It doesn't matter that the ClimateGate emails are out. It doesn't matter that we know that they faked the data. It doesn't matter that they admit that the data they did grab, they destroyed so no one else could look at it. Phil Jones resigned. Okay? Michael Mann is being investigated. You're not allowed to ask these questions at the actual summit. When a gentleman who's a longtime journalist and a documentary filmmaker what is it? Not Evil, Just Wrong, Global Warming. That's his film. It's getting big talk amongst independent and documentary circles. When he goes up and asks a question about it, the guy demonizes him, number one, for talking about emails, saying that they were private, and he's not going to demean himself by discussing private material. Excuse me? These people were funded in the hundreds of millions of dollars for so-called the public good. All of these things should have been public from day one. Then he won't address the question. Then when this man approaches him after his speech to get an answer, what happens? United Nations world government goons come over and say, no dice, pal. Put down the camera. We don't want to get physical with you, buddy, but we will. And that's how these globalists roll. They hide behind new jobs and the safety of humanity while they crush humanity, while they attempt to control humanity even further. Still doubt that global warming is a farce? This one's out of MSNBC. Earth's upper atmosphere cooling dramatically. See, then they try to spin it in the subheadline, new observations may help detect changes from carbon dioxide increases. But that's the entire mention of carbon dioxide in this article. No, this guy's talking about the solar cycle. When the sun is relatively inactive, as it has been in recent years, the outermost layer of the Earth's atmosphere cools dramatically. New observations find the results could help scientists better understand the swelling and shrinking of our planet's atmosphere, a phenomenon that affects the orbits of satellites and space junk. The data from NASA's timed mission show that Earth's atmosphere, the layer above 62 miles or 100 kilometers above the Earth's surface, responds quite dramatically to the effects of an 11-year solar cycle. You see, the sun has cycles in which it gets cooler and hotter, and it has larger and smaller solar flares. You know, it drives me nuts. I listen to a lot of garbage radio. I listen to a lot of Howard Stern. And Stern is harping on this, climate change conference in Copenhagen and saying we have to do this and we have to do that, and it's the greatest thing ever, and the ice caps in Bolivia are melting, and the people in Bolivia are going to basically not have any water, and there's going to be incredible drought, and people are going to die. No, that happens when we send Bechtel into third world nations to take over and privatize a nation's water supply. That's when they starve. That's when they don't have water. It's all a scam. And then one of his underlings comes on and starts saying, hey, well, why isn't it if the sun gets hotter? The sun doesn't get hotter. Just in line with that United Nations propaganda and garbage. El Garbajo, my friends. The sun's heat doesn't affect the Earth's heat. Are you out of your mind right now? There is a huge, and I mean a huge snowstorm going on the East Coast. Covered New York City. Covered D.C. I guess it must be imaginary. I watched The Simpsons last week. And, Lisa, who's supposed to be the uber smart person, is defending global warming to Homer, who we all know is the idiot of humanity. He's about the dumbest character on television, maybe superseded by Peter Griffin on The Family Guy. Only cartoons could be this dumb. And he's the one telling the truth about global warming, saying, oh, it's snowing. He's like, oh, global warming's coming to get me. And then Lisa gives that UN tagline, global warming causes sporadic changes of extremes on both sides of the weather. Falling for the propaganda. So then they make the crazy person on the show seem wrong, and of course Lisa has to be right. Total propaganda. Read the emails. Look at the science. Check out the Great Global Warming Swindle. It is so important that you do your own research. Right here, I've got these 8 things that you can do to stop global warming. And, it goes from adding sulfate to the atmosphere, which is totally and completely ludicrous, to give the earth some shades, plant artificial forests and trees. But here's the one that will interest most of you. Reflect solar energy with clouds. Because white clouds reflect the sun's energy, some scientists reason that the planet's temperature can be cooled by creating more highly reflective clouds over the oceans. This can be accomplished by seeding the skies with so-called cloud condensation nuclei. Tiny bits of seawater make great seeds, according to John Latham, a proponent for the idea of the National Center of Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado. He envisions fleets of remotely operated sailing vessels that continuously fill the skies with, quote-unquote, they call it sea spray, and form bright white clouds as a result. Hurdles facing the concept include the cost of building the sailing ships. Not really. Seeing we see planes doing this day in and day out all over the country. Of course, they're not using salt water. They're not using seawater at all. When you look at what they're using heavy metal particulates, such as barium and aluminum oxide. Again, that's the reality. They're not intending to spray seawater into the air to save us all. They're going to put heavy metals into the sky, and they are.
Fast progress.
And John P. Holdren, the author of Ecoscience, puts out a bulletin stating this about 8 or 9 months ago. People are in an uproar. They're saying, oh, wait, I didn't think this technology existed. And they retract their statement.